At the heart of the galaxy, in a grand chamber made of silver stone and glowing crystal pillars, the Galactic Council gathered like towering judges above a frightened world. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in curved rows, their robes bright, their eyes cold, their voices sharp. In the very center, on the lowest platform, knelt a small, trembling group of beings, the Aurelians. Fragile, thin, golden-skinned, their faces soft and gentle, their eyes full of fear. They were not warriors. They were not rulers. They were farmers, healers, teachers. A peaceful people. And now, they were begging for their lives. Their leader, Elder Saren, lifted his shaking hands toward the council. His voice cracked like dry leaves. Please, our world burns. Our cities are gone. The Drax Dominion has destroyed everything. Millions are dead. We have nowhere left to go. His words echoed through the chamber, but no one leaned forward to listen. Instead, laughter rippled through the council seats. Soft at first, then louder, sharper, crueler. A counselor with hard violet scales leaned back and smirked. Aurelians? Still alive? We thought you had vanished. Another alien with silver horns scoffed. They should have vanished. They are weak, soft, a burden on the galaxy. The Aurelians flinched as though struck. Elder Saren tried again, tears running down his thin cheeks. We were peaceful. We obeyed every law. We harmed no one. Please, we need shelter. We need protection. We are being hunted. The head counselor, a tall figure with gray skin and hollow eyes, stood slowly. His voice boomed like thunder. This council does not waste resources on useless species. Gasps filled the hall, but no one objected. Elder Saren's voice trembled into a whisper. Useless? We only seek mercy. The head counselor raised his hand. The Aurelians offer nothing. No armies. No wealth. No technology. Why should we help a dying race? The question hit like a blade. Elder Saren bowed his head, shaking. Because we are alive. Because we are part of this galaxy too. The council erupted into mocking laughter. Not for long, one member muttered. A final vote appeared on the towering holographic screen above them. 800 lights flashed red. 0 flashed green. The head counselor spoke without emotion. The vote is final. The Aurelians are removed from Galactic record. Their name, erased. Their species, abandoned. Elder Saren gasped as though stabbed. You would abandon children? Families? Survivors? The head counselor narrowed his eyes. This galaxy belongs to the strong. His hand slammed down on a panel. Remove them. Security drones descended. Cold metal claws grabbed the Aurelians and dragged them toward the exit. Their cries filled the hall. Please, we will die. We beg you. But the council members turned away, adjusting their golden robes, whispering, smirking, already forgetting the doomed race at their feet. Elder Saren's voice echoed one last time, raw and broken. Is there no kindness left in the stars? No one answered. Moments later, the council chamber doors slammed shut. The Aurelians were gone. Forgotten. Erased. Their final hope, dead. Far from the council, on a ruined world of fire and ash, the last Aurelian ships rose into space. Their planet, once a green paradise full of gardens and crystal lakes, was now a black graveyard. Oceans boiled. Forests burned. Cities crumbled into dust. The Drax Dominion, a vicious empire of armored warbeasts, had unleashed illegal plasma storms that melted entire continents. They did not conquer. They erased. In the sky above the dying world, a single silver Aurelian cruiser drifted slowly, engines damaged, wings torn, lights flickering. Inside, families huddled together, starving, shaking, wrapped in blankets of woven cloth because they had no metal armor, no weapons, no soldiers. Children cried softly for food. Mothers whispered lullabies through tears. Elders stared at the floor, empty and hopeless. Elder Saren stood at the front window, watching the ashes of his world scatter into space. We are ghosts now, he whispered. Behind him, A young Aurelian woman named Lyra approached, holding a starving infant. Her voice was thin. "Elder, where do we go now?" Seren closed his eyes. "Anywhere. Anywhere the stars will let us live." But he knew the truth. There was nowhere. The Aurelians were alone. Hunted. And the Drax Dominion would not stop until they were extinct. A young Aurelian boy tugged Seren's robe. "Did the council help us?" Elder Seren felt his heart break. "No, child. They turned their backs." A heavy silence filled the ship. Lyra whispered, voice cracking, "So we are forsaken." Seren nodded slowly. "Yes." Hours passed. Days blurred. The ship drifted through black space with no destination, no allies, no hope. Their engines were dying. Their food was gone. Their power was fading. One by one, the stars outside the window began to dim as the ship's lights flickered weaker and weaker. Elder Seren made a final decision. A desperate one. He walked to the broken communication console. His hands shook as he flipped a switch. A small red light blinked weakly. "This is the last signal we can send," he whispered. He pressed the transmitter. His voice echoed into the void. "To anyone, anywhere. This is the last Aurelian vessel. Our world has fallen. Our people are dying. Please, if there is any mercy left in the galaxy, help us." The signal pulsed out into endless space. Then silence. Hours passed. Nothing. Days passed. Nothing. The Aurelians began to lie down, too weak to stand. Lyra clutched her child, whispering goodbye. Elder Seren closed his eyes, waiting for the end. The ship lights dimmed to black. And then, a tiny beep echoed. Soft. Faint. The communication screen flickered. A signal was coming in. Elder Seren's eyes flew open. He stumbled to the console, breath shaking. Static filled the speakers. Then a voice, deep, steady, spoke through the darkness. "Aurelian vessel. Do you copy?" Every Aurelian froze. The voice continued, stronger now. "This is Earth Command." Seren's breath caught in his throat. Earth? Humans? They were small, distant, silent in galactic affairs. No one ever heard from them. No one ever cared about them. Why would they answer? The voice came again. Calm. Firm. Alive. "We received your distress call." The Aurelians stared at the speakers, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The voice paused, and then said 4 words that shook the universe. "We hear you, Aurelians." Gasps filled the ship. Lyra dropped to her knees, clutching her child as tears streamed down her face. "Someone heard us." Elder Seren trembled, voice breaking. "Humans," answered. And as the silence returned, soft, stunned, sacred, every surviving Aurelian felt something they had not felt in weeks. Hope. But in the shadows of space, far behind their drifting ship, a massive Drax war cruiser activated its engines. It had found them. It was closing in. And Earth, the humans, had just stepped into a war they did not yet understand. The galaxy had abandoned the Aurelians. But humanity had just whispered back, "You are not alone." And nothing in the universe would ever be the same again. For a long moment after the human voice echoed through the broken speakers, the Aurelian ship sat in absolute silence. No one moved. No one breathed. It was as if time itself froze, afraid to break the fragile miracle that had just happened. Elder Seren stared at the console with trembling eyes, his thin fingers hovering inches above the controls, scared that touching anything would make the voice disappear. Lyra covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks as she whispered. Someone answered. Someone truly answered. The starving child in her arms let out a tiny weak cry, almost as if he could feel hope for the first time in his short life. All across the dim ship, Aurelians lifted their heads. Eyes that had been dull and lifeless suddenly flickered with a faint spark. For days they had waited for death. Now, they waited for a reply. The voice returned through static, clearer this time, steady like a heartbeat in the dark. "Aurelian vessel, this is Admiral Elias Reyes of Earth Command. We are tracking your signal. Do you need assistance?" Elder Saren nearly collapsed. He fumbled with the controls, his voice shaking like cracked glass. Why yes. Yes, we are survivors. Our world is gone. Our systems are failing. We have nowhere to go. A short silence followed, heavy with fear. What if the humans changed their minds? What if they laughed, like the council did? What if they said the same cruel words, useless, burdens, not worth saving? Saren's heart pounded painfully. The voice returned, firm and direct, yet strangely gentle. How many of you are left? Saren looked around the shattered bridge, at the frightened faces, the weakened bodies, the fading eyes. 216, he whispered. Most are injured, starving, children and elders. Our oxygen is low. Our engines are failing. We cannot heal. We cannot run. A soft crackle came through the line. Then 4 words that poured warmth into the cold ship. We're coming for you. Gasps spread like fire. Lyra choked on a sob. They're coming? For us? A young Aurelian boy asked in a shaking voice. They won't leave us, like the council did. Saren's voice trembled. No, child, no. They answered. But behind them, through the shattered rear window, the shadow of the Drax war cruiser grew closer. Massive, black, hungry, closing in like a predator stalking its final prey. The engines of the Aurelian ship sputtered weakly, unable to move, unable to hide. Their fragile hope trembled. On the human channel, Admiral Rhea's voice sharpened suddenly. Aurelian vessel, your signal just spiked. Are you being pursued? Panic rushed through the Aurelians like icy wind. Lyra turned toward the dark shape swallowing the stars behind them. They found us. Elder Saren forced himself to steady his voice. Yes, the Drax Dominion is approaching. We cannot escape. A pause. A long, terrifying pause. Then Admiral Rhea spoke, voice like iron. Do not panic. Hold your position. Saren stared, stunned. But they will destroy us. Reyes answered without hesitation. Not while we're alive. His words hit like thunder. Protecting strangers. Protecting the weak. Protecting a species no one else valued. Why? Why would the humans do this? Rhea's voice returned, steady and calm, even as alarms sounded faintly behind him. Aurelian vessel, listen carefully. You are no longer alone. Earth Command has dispatched our nearest carrier group. ETA, 12 minutes. 12 minutes. To the Aurelians, 12 minutes sounded like an entire lifetime. But to the Drax, it was more than enough time to kill them all. A piercing siren rang through the Aurelian ship as sensors detected a weapons charge from the Drax cruiser. Bright red lights flashed, painting every frightened face in blood-colored fear. Lyra clutched her child tightly. They're going to fire. Elder Saren's knees buckled. We cannot stop them. On the human channel, Rhea's voice hardened into something fierce. Listen to me. Do not surrender. Do not power down. Keep your shields up. Saren shook his head weakly. Our shields are nearly gone. Rhea's answered, voice low and unshakable. Then we will shield you. Before Saren could reply, the entire ship jolted violently. A bright beam of burning red energy shot past their hull, missing them by meters and lighting up the darkness like a second sun. Screams filled the ship. Children cried. The engines rattled. Panels shattered. The Drax had fired a warning shot. They were playing with their prey. A voice crackled over open space comms. Deep, monstrous, dripping with cruelty. Aurelian insects. You run well, for livestock. The Aurelians froze in terror. The Drax commander's voice continued, laughing low and cold. No council will save you. No empire will protect you. You will die as you lived, weak, helpless, forgotten. Elder Saren felt his soul crack. But then, another voice cut in. Calm, human, unshaken. Drax vessel, this is Admiral Reyes of Earth Command. Silence swept across the void. No one expected a challenge. Least of all from humans. Reyes continued, voice steady as steel. Stand down. These refugees are under our protection. The Drax commander snarled. Oath? Insignificant. Powerless. Stay out of matters you cannot survive. Reyes didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stated one line that echoed across space like a vow. We don't abandon the helpless. The Drax laughed, a horrible, shaking sound that chilled every Aurelian. Then you will die with them. The Aurelian ship trembled again. Another weapons charge. The final one. Lyra held her baby close, whispering, "Close your eyes." Elder Saren bowed his head. If this is our end, let it be quick. The red glow of the Drax weapon filled the window. The Aurelians braced for death. And then, space exploded with light. A massive shadow appeared above them, blocking the red beam. Metal gleamed. Engines roared. A colossal ship, 10 times larger than the Aurelian vessel, dropped out of hyperspace like a falling star. Human lettering shone across its hull. Terran carrier. Valiant Admiral Reyes' voice thundered through the speakers. To the Aurelians, your 12 minutes are over. The ship's shields flared to life, forming a glowing barrier around the tiny refugee vessel. You're safe now. The Aurelians collapsed in tears. For the first time in their history, someone had stood between them and death. Someone who owed them nothing. Someone who asked for nothing. Someone who simply cared. And far away, across hidden channels, across every listening station, across every shadowed government, one terrifying truth began to spread. Humanity had stepped into the light. And the galaxy wasn't ready. The Drax Dominion growled across the void. You dare defend them? Admiral Reyes answered, voice calm and unstoppable. We dare. The stars held their breath. The shields glowed brighter. And a new chapter of the universe began with 5 simple human words. We stand with the weak. The Aurelians, once forsaken, lifted their eyes and saw something they never expected. Not a weapon. Not a threat. But a promise. Humanity was here. And they were not leaving. The great Terran carrier Valiant hung in space like a steel guardian, its shields glowing bright blue as it formed an unbreakable wall between the tiny Aurelian refugee ship and the monstrous Drax war cruiser. Inside the Aurelian vessel, every survivor stared through the cracked window at the enormous human ship, their hearts pounding with a mix of disbelief and awe. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, they felt something other than fear. They felt protected. Elder Saren placed a trembling hand against the glass, whispering, the humans, they came. Lyra held her child close, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. They came for us, when no one else did. The ship was still dark, still cold, still broken. But suddenly it didn't feel like a coffin anymore. It felt like maybe, just maybe, they would live. Across the void, the Drax commander snarled, his voice rumbling through open comms like rolling thunder. Earth Command. Move aside. This species is marked for extinction. Admiral Reyes stood on the Valiant bridge, shoulders squared, eyes steady, his face reflected in holographic screens. His crew watched him in tense silence. Reyes spoke with calm power. Not today. The Drax laughed, a deep, animalistic roar. You humans. You are nothing. You hide on your little blue world and pretend to matter. Reyes replied without hesitation. We don't pretend. We choose. The Drax voice sharpened. Choose extinction, then. The line went dead. On the Aurelian ship, a sudden alarm blared. Elder Saren spun around. What is happening? A young technician, barely strong enough to stand, stared at the flickering screen in horror. The Drax, they are powering a weapon. A planet-killer beam. Lyra gasped. But there is no planet here. The technician's voice trembled. It does not matter. They use it to burn what remains. To erase memory. Elder Saren felt his blood freeze. They want to erase us from history. On the Valiant bridge, Reyes received the same data. His eyes darkened. They're using a searing lance, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Orin, swallowed hard. That weapon is banned by every treaty. Rhea's jaw tightened. The galaxy banned it. The galaxy also ignored it. Behind him, screens flickered with images, records the Aurelians had transmitted. Burned cities. Melted oceans. Shadows of bodies etched into stone. Human officers stared in stunned silence as they realized what the Drax had done to the Aurelian homeworld. It wasn't a battle. It was extermination. Planned. Precise. Merciless. One screen zoomed in on the ruins of an Aurelian city. Black towers crumbled into dust. Streets burned red. The outlines of thousands of bodies lay frozen in ash. Unmoving, unrecognizable. A hush fell over the bridge. Lieutenant Orin whispered, voice shaking, "My God." Reyes stepped closer to the image, his voice low and heavy. They didn't just destroy a world. They made sure nothing could rise from it again. The horror deepened as another transmission played, recorded audio from the planet's final hours. Screams. Cries. Children calling for their parents. A mother whispering her last breath. Lyra covered her ears, sobbing. Elder Saren collapsed to his knees. We asked for peace, and they gave us death. Rhea's hand curled into a fist. He turned to his communications officer. Broadcast this to every human ship. Every station. Every colony. The galaxy ignored this genocide. Earth will not. His voice carried something the Aurelians had never heard before. Not pity, but righteous fury. A quiet dread filled the air. Lyra whispered, "Why? Why did they hate us so much?" Elder Saren shook his head, broken. "We had no soldiers. No weapons. No power. We were no threat." A small Aurelian child stepped forward, voice quivering. "Then why kill us?" For a moment, no one answered. Then Reyes spoke softly, his voice echoing through the comms. "Because evil does not need a reason. It only needs silence." Elder Saren closed his eyes. And the galaxy was silent. Reyes replied, steady, unwavering. "But we are not." Suddenly, a sharp alarm rang out on the Valiant. A red warning flashed across every screen. Weapon lock. Incoming searing lance. The Drax war cruiser glowed red along its spine, charging for the kill. The Aurelian ship trembled violently as radiation brushed their weakened shields. "They are firing!" Lyra screamed. Mighty red light surged forward like a burning river. Death itself. The Aurelians clung to one another, waiting for the end. But instead of impact, there was a blinding flash of blue. The human shield wall expanded, absorbing the beam. Metal groaned. Energy crackled. Sparks flew across the Valiant bridge. Crew members staggered. A console exploded. But the shield held. Admiral Reyes' voice cut through chaos. "Status." Lieutenant Orin yelled over the alarms. "Shields at 40%. One more hit could break us." The Drax prepared another charge. Reyes turned to his tactical officer. "Scan the Aurelian planet. I want to know everything." The officer hesitated, then gasped as data streamed in. "Sir, there are underground tunnels, caverns, and there are remains." Reyes' eyes narrowed. "Survivors?" "No, but records, files, data cores." Elder Saren overheard, his voice trembling. "Our history, our culture, our future." Reyes nodded slowly. "The Drax didn't just kill you. They tried to erase you." Elder Saren's voice broke. "We truly were forsaken." Reyes stepped forward, eyes burning with resolve. "Not anymore." Behind him, the Drax weapon crackled again, brighter, deadlier. A second blast was coming. The Aurelians braced themselves. The humans steadied their shaking ship. And across the dark void, one truth became clear. This was no longer a rescue. This was the uncovering of a crime so massive the galaxy had buried it. A genocide everyone knew about. And everyone ignored. Everyone, except humanity. As the second blast prepared to fire, Admiral Reyes spoke one final line. Quiet, fierce, unforgettable. "We fight, not because they are strong, but because no one else would." The stars seemed to hold their breath. The Drax weapon flared, and humanity stood, unflinching, ready to face the darkness head-on. Because the Aurelians were not just victims anymore. They were under Earth's protection. And that changed everything. The second blast wasn't just light, it was fury. A burning red beam ripped through space like a spear meant to erase everything in its path. The Drax war cruiser roared with power, its engines shaking with the thrill of destruction. The Aurelians watched in frozen terror, their hearts stopping as the weapon ignited. Children screamed. Elders clung to one another. Lyra wrapped both arms around her baby, whispering, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," because she believed this was the end. Elder Saren bowed his head, tears falling silently. "We survived the fire of our world, only to die in the cold of space." On the Valiant bridge, alarms screamed louder than thunder. The ship shook violently as energy flooded toward them. Lieutenant Oren shouted, "Impact in 10 seconds. 10 seconds to decide a fate. 10 seconds to change the universe. 10 seconds to choose between fear and something greater." Admiral Reyes didn't blink. He turned to his officers, voice strong, steady, unbreakable. "All ships. Formation Delta." The command shot across space. Dozens of human warships, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, moved as one. Engines flared. Hulls glowed. They surged forward like a rising tide and locked into a wall. A shield wall. Metal forged into courage. Knights of steel defending tiny, fragile lives. The red beam hit. It slammed into the human line with a deafening crash. Sparks flew like fiery stars. Shields flickered. Consoles burst. The entire Valiant bridge shook so hard officers grabbed the railings to stay upright. A young technician screamed as a panel exploded behind her. "Shields at 15%. Another officer yelled, "We can't take another blast." The Aurelian ship trembled, watching the humans take the full force of death meant for them. Lyra collapsed to her knees, sobbing. "They are dying, for us." Elder Saren pressed his forehead to the floor, voice breaking. "Why? Why would they sacrifice themselves for a people they barely know?" On the bridge, Lieutenant Oren gasped as his screen flickered red. "Admiral, the Drax weapon is charging again." The third blast would be final. It would shatter the shields. It would end the Valiant. It would kill everyone. Silence fell across the bridge. Not fear, silence. The kind that comes before a stand. Reyes turned to his crew, voice low but powerful. "We hold the line." Oren's voice cracked. "Sir, we won't survive another hit." Reyes stared at the burning red glow of the Drax cannon through the main window. "We didn't come here to survive. We came here so they could." The words hit every human officer like a spark to the soul. Their hands steadied. Their breath slowed. Their eyes hardened, not with fear, but with purpose. On the Aurelian ship, voices whispered. "They are protecting us. They don't even know us. Why would humans do this?" A small Aurelian child looked up at Elder Saren and whispered the simplest question of all. "Do they think we matter?" Elder Saren closed his eyes, voice trembling. "Yes, they do." On the Valiant, Reyes opened a shipwide channel. Every human heard his voice. "Listen. The galaxy chose silence. We choose courage." Another pause. A breath. A promise. "We stand with the Forsaken." The crew answered, not with words, but with fire in their eyes. The Drax weapon reached full charge. The ship glowed blood-red. Predatory. Triumphant. The Drax commander laughed through open comms. "You shield insects. You die insects." Reyes stepped forward slowly, calm as stone. "We don't die for nothing." He turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast to every frequency, every channel, every system." The officer hesitated. "Even the council?" Reyes nodded. "Especially the council." The message went out. Across the galaxy, screens flickered on. Council chambers. Military stations. Mining colonies. Cargo docks. Citizens watching holograms in crowded rooms. Everyone saw the same broadcast. the battered Aurelian ship, the massive Drax war cruiser, and humanity, standing between them. Rhea's voice echoed across the stars. To anyone watching, look closely. This is what strength looks like. The weak are not burdens. The helpless are not worthless. The forgotten are not alone. The Drax commander snarled, "Enough speeches. Die!" The weapon fired. The third blast screamed through space. The Valiant's shields cracked instantly, shards of blue energy scattering like broken glass. The blast hit the human line, throwing ships off course, ripping metal, tearing hulls. A destroyer spiraled away in flames. A frigate split in two. Human lives, gone in seconds. The Aurelians cried out in horror. They are dying. Lyra sobbed into her hands. For us, Elder Seren could barely speak. They chose us. The Valiant shook violently. Lights flickered. The entire ship groaned like it was about to break apart. Shields at 3%. Lieutenant Orin screamed. Reyes closed his eyes briefly, just long enough to feel the weight of the moment. Then he whispered, "Hold." The blast weakened. The beam flickered. And finally, after a long, torturous moment, it stopped. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Eternal. Smoke filled the Valiant bridge. Sparks fell like dying stars. Officers lay injured. Panels burned. But the ship was still there. The wall still stood. Humanity still lived. Barely. Lieutenant Orin gasped. We held. Reyes opened his eyes. They were calm. Fierce. Alive. Status on the refugees. The communications officer checked quickly. Their ship is intact, sir. Untouched. A shaky breath filled the bridge. Relief. Pain. Pride. Elder Seren fell to his knees, hands covering his face. They protected us. With their own lives. And then, something happened that no one expected. The Aurelians began to stand. Not out of fear. Not out of panic. But out of something new. Something powerful. Respect. Reverence. Hope. Elder Seren whispered, voice full of stunned awe. The galaxy abandoned us. He lifted his head, tears streaming. But humanity stood with us. On the Valiant, Admiral Reyes finally spoke the words that would echo through history. We don't turn away. His voice hardened into steel. We protect. The Aurelian survivors leaned closer to the speakers, holding their breath. Reyes finished with a vow that would shake the universe. As long as we live, they live. The stars had witnessed something impossible. Not conquest. Not power. But sacrifice. A shield made not of metal, but of humanity itself. And far in the darkness, the Drax Dominion realized something terrifying. Humans were not like the others. Humans did not run. Humans did not surrender. Humans stood. And because of that, everything was about to change. The battlefield fell into a haunting silence after the final blast faded. The space around the Valiant was littered with glowing debris, broken metal, shattered hull pieces, drifting sparks from fallen human ships. It looked like a graveyard hanging in the sky. Inside the Aurelian refugee vessel, every survivor stared in stunned disbelief. They had witnessed the impossible. A race no one respected, no one feared, no one cared about, had stood against death itself. For them, Elder Seren pressed a shaking hand to his heart. They bled for us, Lyra whispered into her child's hair, voice trembling. Humans saved us when the galaxy didn't even see us. The child looked up with wide eyes. Does that mean we live now? Elder Seren swallowed hard. Yes, because they chose to protect us. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Reyes stood among smoke and flickering lights. Officers limped to their stations. Medics rushed to the injured. Sparks rained from burnt panels. A fire suppression drone hissed through the air. Despite everything, the ship held. Humanity held. Lieutenant Orin wiped blood from his forehead. Sir, casualties are heavy. We lost 6 ships. Hundreds of lives. A shadow crossed Reyes' face. His voice cracked, not with fear, but with grief. They gave their lives for a promise. Orin nodded slowly. A promise to strangers. Reyes stared at the tiny Aurelian vessel on the main screen. Strangers who were abandoned by everyone else. But before anyone could speak further, a sharp alert cut through the air. Incoming transmission. High Council priority. The screen lit up, and the faces of the Galactic Council appeared. Hundreds of alien leaders, their robes clean, their expressions cold, their eyes burning with hidden anger. The head counselor leaned forward, voice dripping with fake calm. Admiral Reyes. Cease your operation immediately. Reyes' jaw tightened. We are protecting refugees. The counselor's lips curled slightly. You are defying galactic order. Reyes didn't blink. Order abandoned them. A murmur spread across the council seats. Whispers, hisses, disapproval. The counselor raised his voice. You were instructed not to interfere. Reyes answered firmly, we don't take orders that condemn innocent lives. The counselor slammed his fist on the podium. Humanity is a minor world. You have no authority. Reyes replied slowly, clearly. We don't need authority to be decent. Silence chilled the chamber. Then the counselor leaned closer, voice low and venomous. Stand down, or face consequences. Lieutenant Orin's hands clenched. Sir, they're threatening us. Reyes didn't look away from the screen. Let them. The counselor's eyes narrowed into slits. You have 1 hour to abandon the refugees. Reyes said nothing. His silence was louder than any war cry. The counselor continued, voice colder than ice. Failure to comply will result in sanctions, travel restrictions, and military action. Lyra gasped aboard the Aurelian ship. The council wants them to leave us. Elder Saren's voice broke. The galaxy truly wants us dead. The counselor spoke again, now with finality. Humanity will not risk itself for a doomed species. Reyes straightened. His voice was steady, unshakable. Watch us. Gasps erupted across the council chamber. The counselor's face twisted with rage. Then Earth will be held responsible. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Lieutenant Orin whispered, voice trembling with disbelief. The council would rather destroy us than admit they were wrong. Reyes turned to him. They fear what we just showed the galaxy. Orin swallowed. That strength isn't cruelty. Reyes nodded. It's compassion. But before the crew could breathe, another alert sounded. Incoming signal, dark channel. Orin frowned. Sir, this channel is restricted. Military only. Black operations. Reyes stepped closer. Open it. The screen flickered, and every human officer froze. A shadowed figure appeared, an alien in a high-ranking council uniform, face hidden by darkness. The voice was low and chilling. Earth Command. Listen carefully. You have made a grave mistake. Reyes narrowed his eyes. Identify yourself. The figure ignored the demand. You think the council simply abandoned the Aurelians? You think the Drax acted alone? Elder Saren leaned forward, breath-catching. What do they mean? The shadow continued. The council knew of the destruction. They approved it. Shock ripped through both ships. No, Lyra whispered. They watched our world burn. The voice went on, cruel and calm. The Drax Dominion and the council had a mutual agreement. The Aurelians were inconvenient. Elder Saren staggered backward. We were erased, for profit. The shadow spoke the final truth. Your planet contained rare energy crystals. Valuable. Powerful. The council wanted them harvested. A gasp filled the air. So they let the Drax kill us, they ensured it. Admiral Reyes' face hardened into something deadly. You're confessing to genocide. The shadow chuckled. There is no proof, and there will be no survivors. The signal cut. Alarms blared. Lieutenant Orin shouted, Sir, multiple council warships just dropped out of hyperspace. The screen lit up with a horrifying sight, an entire fleet surrounding the battlefield. Elder Saren fell to his knees. The galaxy is coming to finish us. Lyra covered her child, trembling. They want to wipe out all witnesses. Reyes stared at the incoming fleet, eyes blazing with fury and sorrow. They are not here for the Aurelians. Orin's voice cracked. They are here for us. The Council ships powered their weapons. The Drax cruiser turned, ready to strike again. 2 enemies. 1 shattered human fleet. 1 tiny refugee ship. No escape. No allies. No mercy. Elder Saren whispered through tears, "We truly are forsaken." And then, Admiral Reyes spoke, voice deep as thunder. "No, not forsaken." He turned to his crew. "As long as Earth stands, we stand with them." The final battle was no longer about rescue. It was about truth. About justice. About a galaxy built on cruelty, and a single species brave enough to challenge it. Humanity wasn't fighting for victory. They were fighting because someone had to. And the universe was about to find out. Humans don't back down. Humans don't abandon the weak. Humans don't kneel. Not now. Not ever. The space around the Valiant darkened as the Council fleet emerged from hyperspace. Ship after ship after ship. Enormous war cruisers arranged in a deadly circle that closed around the humans like a trap meant to choke the last breath from them. Their silver hulls gleamed coldly, weapons glowing with silent malice. To the Aurelians, it looked like the sky itself had turned into a cage. Lyra's voice trembled as she stared at the monstrous ring of ships. "There are so many." Elder Saren felt his knees weaken. The galaxy came to kill the truth. Even the children understood. They clung to their parents and whispered the question no one could bear to answer. "Are we going to die?" On the Valiant bridge, the atmosphere was thick. Fear pressed against every heartbeat, every breath. Officers stared at their screens, eyes wide, stunned by the impossible odds. Lieutenant Orin whispered, voice barely a sound, "We can't win. Not against both fleets. The Drax Dominion on one side. The Galactic Council on the other. Humanity caught in between. Broken, battered, bleeding. A hopeless war. A doomed stand." But Admiral Reyes didn't sit. Didn't shake. Didn't falter. He stepped forward, shoulders squared, eyes locked onto the image of the Council fleet. He spoke calmly. "Send a message." Orin blinked. "To who, sir?" Reyes answered, voice heavy with certainty. "To every human outpost in the galaxy." The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, that will reveal our location." Reyes didn't turn. "We're already surrounded. Send it." The officer swallowed hard and opened the broadcast. Reyes stood tall, his voice steady, every word carrying across space like a heartbeat. "To all Terran forces, this is Admiral Elias Reyes. On mining colonies, research stations, frontier outposts, distant human freighters, the signal flared to life. Humans everywhere paused, watched, listened. Reyes continued, voice raw with truth. "We stand between the helpless and extinction. The galaxy betrayed the Aurelians. The Council watched their world burned. The Drax slaughtered millions. And now, both seek to silence the last survivors." He looked around the ruined bridge, at his wounded crew, at the flickering screens, at the shattered shields. "We are alone." A heavy silence. Then his voice changed, growing stronger, fiercer, burning like fire. "But we are human." His words hit the galaxy like thunder. "We don't turn away. We don't surrender the weak. We do not kneel to cruelty." On the Aurelian ship, tears streamed freely. Lyra whispered, "He fights for us." Elder Saren pressed a trembling hand to his chest. "No one has ever spoken for us." Reyes raised his chin. "To every human who hears my voice, this is not a war for conquest. This is a stand for justice." His next words shook the stars. "If you can reach us, come." The message ended. For a moment, there was only silence. Lieutenant Orin turned to him, voice breaking. "Sir, even if they hear it, they're too far." Reyes didn't look away from the enemy fleets. "Hope travels faster than ships." Before they could speak, The council broadcast activated. The head counselor appeared, expression carved from ice. Humanity, you will power down your ships. You will surrender the refugees. And you will submit to judgment. Reyes stared back. No, a flicker of rage crossed the counselor's face. Then we will erase you. Weapons across both enemy fleets flared to life. Thousands of cannons igniting in perfect, deadly synchronization. A lethal glow washed through space, turning the darkness blood red. On the Aurelian ship, panic erupted. They're going to fire. We cannot survive this. The humans will die because of us. Lyra clutched her baby, crying, please, someone help them. Elder Saren closed his eyes, whispering the only prayer left in him. Let their sacrifice mean something. On the Valiant, Lieutenant Oren whispered, Sir, any last orders? Reyes placed his hand firmly on the console, eyes burning with fierce resolve. Yes. He turned to every human aboard. We hold the line. The crew straightened. Injured officers wiped blood from their faces and returned to their stations. Medics helped wounded soldiers stand. Engineers braced themselves against sparking walls. No one ran. No one begged. No one broke. They stood. The enemy fleets charged their weapons to full power. Their attack would erase everything in its path. Every living soul. Every ship. Every survivor. The countdown to destruction began. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Lyra sobbed. No, no. Elder Saren whispered. Thank you, humans. 4, 3, 2. Reyes whispered. For the Forsaken. 1. And then, space tore open. A blinding white ripple split the darkness behind the Valiant, like the universe itself opening its fist. Dozens, no, hundreds, of ships burst out of hyperspace in streaks of blue fire. Human ships. Colony defense fleets. Mining frigates retrofitted with weapons. Old war cruisers pulled from retirement. Even civilian transports, armed with whatever they could carry. They appeared like a tidal wave of steel and light. Communication channels exploded with voices. This is Rim Patrol, arriving to assist. Outer Colony Fleet, standing by. Civilian Defense Militia, ready to fight. For Earth. For the innocent. A final voice thundered louder than all the rest. Deep, ancient, powerful. This is the Terran Titan, flagship of the First Fleet. A colossal shadow emerged, bigger than any council ship, bigger than the Drax cruiser. Its hull stretched like a floating continent, weapons glowing like a rising sun. Admiral Reyes closed his eyes for one breath. One heartbeat. One miracle. Then he whispered, Humanity, answered. The council fleet faltered. The Drax commander hissed in shock. The Aurelians stared in open disbelief. Elder Saren fell to his knees, sobbing. They came, the humans came, Lyra whispered through tears. We are not forsaken. Reyes raised his voice, clear, thunderous, unstoppable. All ships, form the shield. Humanity moved as one. A wall of ships. A wall of courage. A wall of defiance. And humanity roared, not with words, but with unity. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood a terrifying truth. Humans were not small. Humans were not weak. Humans were not alone. They were many. And they stood for the Forsaken. The stars trembled. And the universe realized, a new power had awakened. A power called humanity. The darkness of space shook as the human reinforcements spread across the stars like a rising storm. Their engines burned blue and white, lighting the void with the fierce glow of hope. What had been a lonely battlefield only moments ago was now filled with hundreds of Terran ships. Old, new, armored, patched, tiny, massive, all united under one banner. Humanity. On the ruined Aurelian vessel, every survivor pressed against the cracked windows, their thin hands trembling as they watched the impossible unfold. A child whispered through quivering lips, There are so many. Lyra held her baby close, tears spilling uncontrollably. They came. They actually came. Elder Saren collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed. We were forsaken by the galaxy, but not by the humans. His voice broke into a sob he could no longer hold back. The Aurelians began crying, soft at first, then louder, waves of emotion crashing through the starving survivors. Not fear, not despair, but relief. For the first time in their lives, they were defended. On the Valiant Bridge, Admiral Reyes stood silent as the human fleets completed formation. His crew stared wide-eyed, breathless, shaking with disbelief. Lieutenant Orin covered his mouth with trembling fingers. They heard you. They all heard you, Reyes' voice cracked, not with fear, but with pride. We called. Humanity answered. The communications panel exploded with messages. Voices from every corner of space spoke at once. We won't let you stand alone. We saw the broadcast. We saw the truth. We fight for the innocent. For the Aurelians. For justice. Reyes steadied himself, hands gripping the console. Open a channel to all fleets. The officer nodded, tears in his eyes. Channel open, sir. Reyes spoke, voice deep and resonant. Humans across the stars, today we stand not for power, but for compassion. Not for conquest, but for the helpless. The galaxy chose silence. We choose courage. The entire fleet fell silent, every ship, every soldier, every pilot listening. Remember this. We are not fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for those who have no voice, no home, no shield. He turned his gaze toward the tiny Aurelian ship. We fight for them. And across the human fleet, 3 words echoed like thunder. For the Forsaken. The stars trembled with their roar. But on the other side of the battlefield, fear twisted into hatred. The Drax commander snarled, his armored jaw clenching. So humans gather like insects. It changes nothing. The council fleet, once confident, now shifted nervously. The head counselor appeared on every screen, his voice sharp and furious. Humans, stand down. This is illegal. This is rebellion. This is treason against the galaxy. Reyes faced the screen calmly. If defending the innocent is treason, then we stand guilty. Gasps filled the council chambers across the galaxy. Never in history had a species spoken to them that way. Never had anyone defied them this openly. The counselor leaned forward, eyes burning with rage. Humanity will be crushed. Reyes answered softly, maybe, but we will not be ashamed. The counselor raised his hand. All ships, fire on the humans. Engines flared. Cannons charged. A terrifying glow built across thousands of enemy warships. It looked like a second sun forming, a sun of destruction. On the Aurelian ship, panic erupted. They're going to wipe them out. Humans came for us. Now they will die for us. Lyra sobbed. No. Please, not them. Elder Saren lifted his shaking hands to the window, voice cracking. Humans, forgive us. This is our curse upon you. But before he could finish, another voice rose. A small voice. A fragile one. A voice that had never known strength. Until now. A little Aurelian girl stepped forward. Her clothes were torn, her cheeks hollow, her eyes tired, but burning with something new. Courage. She whispered, so quietly at first only those near her could hear. They stood for us. Then louder, so we must stand for them. The Aurelians turned, stunned. She walked to Elder Saren and took his hand. We cannot fight, but we can stand. Her words echoed through the ship. Slowly, the Aurelians began to rise. Children, elders, mothers, the wounded, every single one. They stood, facing the human fleet, tiny and broken, but upright. Elder Saren lifted his voice, trembling but powerful. To the humans who saved us, we stand with you. And in that moment, something ancient and powerful awakened inside the Aurelians. Hope became strength. Fear became unity. Weakness became resolve. Back on the Valiant, Lieutenant Orin's screen flickered. Sir, incoming transmission from the refugees. The hologram opened, and the Aurelians appeared. Every last one of them, standing. Elder Saren bowed deeply, tears glowing in his golden eyes. Admiral Reyes, we have no weapons, no fleet, no soldiers. He placed his hand over his heart. But we give you our honor. Reyes' eyes softened with emotion. Saren continued, voice breaking, if we survive this day, the Aurelians will remember humanity. Forever. A hush fell across the human fleet. Reyes swallowed, his voice barely holding together. Then let us survive it together. Suddenly, the battlefield shook. Sirens blared. The Council fleet unleashed a massive barrage, thousands of beams and missiles streaking through space toward the human line. The sky turned into fire. Incoming barrage. Orin shouted. Shields won't hold. The humans braced. The Aurelians prayed. The Dracs roared. And then, a sound like thunder filled the void. Boom! The Terran Titan fired. One blast, one massive beam of pure blue energy, cut through the darkness like a sword of light. It struck the Council's lead warship and shredded its shields in seconds. The ship erupted into flames and shattered. Silence. Shock. Fear surged through the enemy fleets. Humanity, outnumbered, had struck first. The Titan's captain spoke, voice booming across every channel. We are Terrans. We do not break. Then another voice, young, fierce, from a human fighter pilot, for Earth. Another, for the Aurelians. And then thousands more voices burst together, for humanity. Engines roared. The fleet surged forward. Human ships charged head-on into the storm. They weren't the biggest. They weren't the strongest. But they were united. They knew what they were fighting for, and they refused to back down. On the Aurelian ship, the survivors watched in stunned awe as humanity, the species the galaxy mocked, began pushing back two empires at once. Elder Saren whispered, "They are not fighting to win." His voice trembled. "They are fighting because no one else ever did." And in that instant, the galaxy learned a truth that would echo for centuries. When humanity stands, even the stars bow. The battle was far from over. The danger was still immense. But something irreversible had begun. The weak were no longer alone. The forsaken were no longer forgotten. And humanity, once ignored, had become the shield of the helpless. The galaxy trembled, because it had finally witnessed the most dangerous force in existence. Compassion with courage. Kindness with strength. Humanity awakened. The battle became a storm, light, fire, and metal colliding in the endless dark. Human ships pushed forward with fearless momentum, their engines screaming, their weapons blazing, their hulls trembling but unbroken. On every channel, human voices roared, not with hatred, but with purpose. Hold the line. Protect the refugees. For Earth. For the Aurelians. The Council fleet staggered under the unexpected fury. Their perfect formation cracked. Their confidence shattered. Their leaders, once calm and smug, now barked desperate orders. Retreat, reform, fire. Meanwhile, the Drax Dominion roared in rage, sending monstrous cruisers charging headlong into the fight. They expected humans to run, to beg, to kneel. But humanity did none of those things. They advanced. They sacrificed. They stood. On the Aurelian refugee ship, the survivors clung to each other, watching in shaking silence. Every blast of light reflected in their tear-filled eyes. Every explosion sent their hearts racing. Every human ship that fell drew a cry of grief. Lyra sobbed into her hands. "They are dying. For us?" Elder Saren bowed his head, voice trembling. "No. They are dying for what is right." A small Aurelian child pressed her palm to the window, whispering, "Please, let them live." The Aurelian ship had no weapons, no shields, no power left, only their prayers. But still, they stood. All of them. Upright. Watching. Hoping. On the Valiant Bridge, chaos raged. Sparks erupted from shattered consoles. Smoke filled the air. Medics dragged the wounded to the floor. The shields were nearly gone. Lieutenant Orin shouted over the alarms, "Hull breach on Deck 7. Engines failing. We can't take much more." Admiral Reyes stood at the front, gripping the rail so tightly his knuckles went white. His face was bruised, his uniform torn, but his voice, steady. Redirect all power to forward shields. Orin stared at him. Sir, that will leave our sides exposed. Reyes didn't blink. We protect the refugees. No matter what. The order was given. The Valiant turned, positioning itself fully between the Aurelian vessel and the oncoming attack. A shield. A wall. A promise. Then, a deafening blast shook the universe. A Drax supercruiser fired a massive plasma cannon straight at the Valiant. The hit sent the human flagship spinning. Officers were thrown to the ground. Panels burst. The lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency red glow. Orin's voice cracked. Shields gone. Engines dead. We're defenseless. The Drax commander laughed over open comms. You die now, humans. The Council fleet locked weapons on the crippled Valiant. Hundreds of cannons aimed. Ready to fire. Ready to end it all. On the Aurelian ship, silence fell. Thick, suffocating, final. Lyra whispered, "They saved us, and now they will fall." Elder Saren's voice broke. No, there must be a way. He knew there was none. The children cried softly, holding shattered pieces of hope. Then, from the human Titan flagship, a final transmission activated. Admiral Reyes appeared, bruised, bleeding, exhausted, but still standing. His voice was soft, but carried more strength than any weapon. To the Aurelians, if this is our last moment, know this. The Aurelians leaned closer. Frozen. Breathless. You were not worthless. You were not invisible. You were not forsaken. Lyra's tears fell like rain. Elder Saren's heart shattered. Reyes continued. You are alive. You matter. And as long as humanity breathes, no one like you will ever stand alone again. Silence echoed across space. Even the enemy fleets froze, if only for a heartbeat. Then Reyes spoke the final vow. We stand with you. Always. The transmission ended. Cannons charged. Weapons glowed. The enemy prepared to fire. The end seemed inevitable. But suddenly, something moved. Something small. Something fragile. The Aurelian ship. Elder Saren staggered to his feet, eyes filled with fierce resolve. We will not let them die alone. Lyra gasped. But our ship is broken. We have nothing. Saren shook his head. We have ourselves. He placed his hand on the navigation console. We stand with them. One by one, Aurelians stepped forward. Mothers, elders, children, all touching the shattered controls. Together. And somehow, the ship answered. Its engines flickered, weak, unstable, but alive. The dying vessel drifted forward, placing itself beside the Valiant. Tiny, powerless, but defiant. A message flashed from the Aurelian ship to every fleet. 3 words. Glowing in golden light. We stand too. The galaxy froze. The Council fleet hesitated. The Drax faltered. And in that hesitation, something unstoppable happened. Dozens of smaller alien ships dropped out of hyperspace. Species the galaxy had ignored, oppressed, silenced. Voices echoed across comms. We saw the broadcast. The Aurelians stood for us once. We will not hide anymore. We join humanity. More ships arrived. And more. And more. Different colors. Different shapes. Different worlds. But one purpose. One stand. One unity. A coalition of the forgotten. The Council panicked. Retreat. Retreat now. The Drax commander roared in fury. This is not over. Both fleets turned and jumped into hyperspace, fleeing the battlefield they thought they owned. Silence consumed the stars. Slowly, the human fleet powered down weapons. The battle was over. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed everything. On the Valiant, the lights flickered back on. Engineers cheered. Medics wept. Soldiers embraced. Orin sank to his knees, laughing and crying at once. We did it. Admiral Reyes closed his eyes, a single tear escaping. Not for victory. For meaning. For purpose. For the lives saved. The Aurelian ship docked with the Valiant. The ramp opened. Elder Saren stepped onto the human deck, his legs weak, his heart full. He bowed deeply. Admiral Reyes, today, humanity gave us back our future. Reyes placed a hand over his heart. No. You took a stand. We only stood with you. Lyra approached, holding her child. We have nothing to offer. Reyes knelt to the child's level, smiling softly. You offer proof that kindness is stronger than fear. The child reached out, placing a tiny hand in his. Thank you for hearing us. Reyes whispered, voice breaking, thank you for calling. Years later, the galaxy would remember this day by one name. The day of standing. The day the Forsaken rose. The day the weak became strong. The day humanity revealed its greatest power. Not weapons, not armies, not fear, but the courage to care. And written in history, carved into stone, taught across worlds, were the words that changed everything: we stand together. Because on that day, humanity didn't just save a species. They saved the soul of the galaxy. And the stars themselves gleamed brighter, because compassion had finally found its voice. Humanity.